How is it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Ethan Bridge. I'm host of the Social Media Marketing School podcast and the guy behind the Instagram page at The Marketing Ethan. Now, on today's episode, I want to talk a little bit about something that I think is often neglected when it comes to Instagram profile creation, and that is your Instagram highlights. A lot of people don't even have them. But in my opinion, they are actually one of the things that have a huge influence over your follower conversion rate. Your follower conversion rate being the amount of page visitors you get that actually click that follow button. Besides from your content and your bio being the two main things, I think that your highlights are actually the next most important thing because they can give a complete overview of what your page visitors can expect from your page. And without them, in my opinion, your page looks somewhat incomplete. If you go onto two different accounts, one that has highlights and one that doesn't, the one that does have highlights, no matter how professional or unprofessional they may be, the profile looks more complete. So just from an aesthetic standpoint, you need to be having highlights on your page. Now, you don't want to waste your highlights. You can have multiple highlights. In my opinion, you should have at least 4 because that fills up the bar on the page. You can have more if you want, but those first 4 highlights are your most important. And therefore, you need to be utilizing them to the best of your ability. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk you through 4 different categories you should have as those first 4 highlights on your page. So without any further ado, let's just dive straight into the first highlight. That being an about you. When somebody first visits your page, they have no idea who you are. They've just stumbled across you, be it through the explore page, through hashtags, through someone else recommending your page, or through the suggested for you tab. But at the end of the day, they have no idea who you are. So, why haven't you, or you may have one, but it might not be good enough at the moment, why haven't you got an about you section on your highlights? People can instantly find out who you are as an individual, as a creator, and what they can expect to see from your page. They might want to know your age, where you're from, what you do, what content you post about, your journey. All of these things are of great interest to people visiting your page because it paints a picture of who you are as a creator and what they can expect if they follow your page into the future. It might be how you got to the point that you are currently at, so a little journey about you, how old you are, where you're from, what you do, what you create. But all of this comes together and builds trust. It builds that authority because you are showing a personal side to yourself. You can't really tell much about a creator solely from a carousel, especially if it's a faceless carousel. But if you're on stories or you're creating highlights about who you actually are as a person, show this to potential followers because that trust is that instant thing you need to grab hold of because as soon as you can build that trust, that is when that person is far more likely to click that follow button. So highlight number 1, have an about you section. Highlight number 2, showcase some testimonials, some social proof, why people should trust you. It builds that authority. If you've got people consistently DMing you, brilliant. Take screenshots of those thankful DMs or those DMs where people have messaged you saying, oh, I implemented that tip and this happened, this was the result I got. These are all things that you should be showcasing to build that trust and authority with your audience because clearly if people are implementing the things you teach, what you teach is worthwhile consuming because it can benefit people at the end of the day. If what you teach is useless and doesn't really work, then people aren't going to want to consume your content. But if it works, then obviously it's a no-brainer to consume it and implement what you actually teach. So having those testimonials just cements that authority and builds that trust even further. So client results, your personal milestones, how quickly your page has been growing. A lot of people don't like sharing milestone posts. I personally do, one, because it's a celebration for myself. I think it's good to take time and reflect on just how far you've come. But anyone visiting your actual page can see your progression and how quickly you are actually growing. It may have taken you ages to reach your first 1,000, but then you got that exponential growth and now you're gaining a couple of thousand followers a week or a month, I don't know. But it just shows that progression and gives new people visiting your page some perspective on what you are like as a creator and how good your content actually is. So social proof, milestones, client results, personal achievements. If you've got a degree, tell people. But all of these things are helping establish that authority and build trust with those visitors coming to your page, which in turn, again, makes them much more likely to click that follow button. So, highlight number 1, about you. Highlight number 2, social proof and other ways that you are going to be able to build your authority on Instagram. Moving on to highlight number 3, and this is to actually talk about your products or services. If you don't tell people that you've got something to sell, then you're never actually going to sell it. It's pretty self-explanatory, but a lot of people come to me and they go, Ethan, I'm posting all of this daily content, but no one's actually approaching me for my product or service. And my first question is always, well, do people know you have a product or service? Are you actually telling them about it? Because if you aren't, then how are they supposed to know? It's a bit of a no-brainer, but your highlights are a perfect place to do it because it's not too pushy. It's not like you're creating a piece of content dedicated to your product or service and really forcing it in people's faces, but rather you're just having it there so if they did come across your page because they were interested in your content, for example, it might have given them a lot of value so they want to go onto your page and find out more about you, they can instantly see that you've got a product or service there. And if it's going to help them with their journey and you've just provided them with all that value, then it's a really good transition to get that conversation going or have them book a discovery call with you so that you can close them as a client. But you can see that if you hadn't had this product or service highlight there in the first place, they may not have known that you had a product or service at all. So for example, the highlight could simply be you talking about your product or service, talking about the benefits, why people should buy it, maybe what they'd be missing out on if they didn't buy it. You know how to market your product or service if you are marketing it elsewhere. So record a video of you, make it personal. I prefer to make it a video in my opinion, opposed to a graphic or an infographic about it, because again, you are a personal brand or likely to be a personal brand on Instagram. Therefore, everything about what you do and what you sell also needs to be somewhat personal, in my opinion. The more personal you can actually make things, the more trustworthy you are as an individual. So actually talking to your potential clients about your product with a video of your face makes it much more appealing to them, much more trustworthy, which in turn makes it much more likely for them to purchase. So have a highlight of your product or service. Now the final highlight, the fourth highlight that you want to include is further value. You may create stories every now and again where you provide that exclusive content that people won't see in your feed content because you haven't spoken about it there. But you still want to bring this further value so that other people can find it. Maybe if they missed your stories for that day because stories disappear after 24 hours. So that's what a highlight's for. You take your best pieces of content from your Instagram stories and put them into a highlight reel. This way you're actually building up a bigger content bank than just your feed content. And anyone visiting your page can go to that exclusive story content within your highlights and learn even more from you. When you're continuing to provide further value, sharing more secrets, being completely transparent about everything you know, this again helps build that trust and that authority. Two of the key things that you need to have when building a personal brand on social media. So providing further value is key. Now, there are obviously other things that you can include in your highlights. For example, you may consistently do Q&As every now and again. So you could have a highlight with your various Q&A answers, or just a huge highlight where you compile all of those Q&A answers. So frequently asked questions, for example, if you get people asking very similar questions in your DMs time and time again, so that people don't ask those questions over and over again, you can either just refer them to your highlights or have them in your highlights so people don't have to ask you the question in the first place. Get creative with your highlights. They don't have to be the same as everybody else's, but they should be structured. They should build trust and build authority. Because when somebody visits your page, you want them to click that follow button. You have done the hard part. You've got them to your page in the first place. Now you need to showcase your value, build that trust, and show just how good you are at what you do. You've shown that through your content, but you may need to seal the deal through your highlights. So they may need to find more out about you. You may need to provide that social proof to show that the content you produce actually works. And once you combine all of these things together, it's much more likely that that person will hit that follow button. And that is how you need to be structuring your Instagram highlights. And that wraps up today's video. If you did enjoy, I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and turned on post notifications. That way you will never miss a video when I post one. Now, if you did enjoy today's video, I did just want to mention that this is actually a part of my podcast series, Social Media Marketing School, and the audio version of the podcast is actually the place to be because I post this content a little bit sooner on the audio version of the podcast. So if you want to consume this content sooner, make sure you are subscribing over there. I will leave some links in the description, so just scroll down and make sure you hit subscribe. If you have any questions with regards to anything I have mentioned in the video, please just reach out to me on Instagram at @themarketingethan. Send me a DM and I will make sure I get back to you no matter what. But if you have made it to this point, I just want to finish off by saying thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.